Congratulations! You've quit your toxic job and left your burnout behind. So, why might you be feeling uneasy or maybe even a little traumatized? Stay tuned because in this video you are going to learn why that's the case and what you can do about it. Also, be sure you stick around until the end because I'm going to be sharing a free resource that can help. Welcome back! If you're new to this channel, I'm Annie Little. I'm an ICF certified coach and a former lawyer, and I created this channel for lawyers who are looking for practical guidance on how to land, lead, and succeed in the legal profession and beyond. So let's talk about the aftermath of a toxic job. Leaving a toxic workplace is one of the best, if not the best, ways of addressing your burnout. But a lot of lawyers that I work with are surprised by the hangover that they experience after they've left. So what's going on there? While you are in a toxic workplace environment, your brain shifts into survival mode. And what that means is that you are responding to events that are happening from like a more negative perspective. And by negative, I mean in a survival response, as opposed to more of like a learning and accepting response. So this is where you're gonna find yourself in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And when that's how you're processing information and really just trying to survive day to day, you are not processing the emotional impact of what you've gone through. So as soon as you're out of this toxic environment where you don't feel psychologically safe, you're able to relax and your brain is able to start functioning from this more positive perspective, and all of the stuff that you went through before is starting to bubbling up so that you can process those emotions. I know it's totally unfair, but if you find yourself feeling this way, nothing is going wrong. This is completely normal. And here's what it could look like. So let's say you have quit your job and you are applying for new ones. I know many lawyers who, when they're in the situation and they're updating their resume to include their work experience from their past job, that can be very triggering for them to have to recall even benign work experiences. And that's your brain starting to process what actually happened because you weren't able to when you were in survival mode. And if you are in a new job, this can look like you having these negative responses to what are probably neutral actions by other people. So even if you are in a psychologically safe workplace now, if your boss says something that's similar to what your old boss would say and you knew what your old boss actually meant, you might apply the same sort of reasoning to your new boss when it's probably not the case. So whether you have already left a toxic job or you're thinking about leaving one, here are some ways that you can heal from that experience before and as you move into a new job. So first option that a lot of people will consider is taking a break between quitting and starting a new job. And this can look like quitting without having another job lined up or negotiating a big gap between when your quit date and your start date. And remember what I said earlier about when your brain is coming out of survival mode, you're able to relax. That's when all of this old stuff is going to come up and your brain and your body are going to want to process it. And I've had some clients report that they may go on vacation to celebrate leaving their job and they'll either get physically ill because their body is just finally relaxing and not having to be so on guard all the time, or they'll have really extreme emotional responses to really little things. So if you're being able to take some time in between jobs once you've left a really crappy one can be really great for your mind and body to get on the same page. Of course, not everyone has the privilege of being able to take time off between jobs without a paycheck. So in those instances, here's what I suggest. Getting a good therapist, even if you're not in a toxic job, but just as a lawyer, having a good therapist is essential. And if you're experiencing severe anxiety or depression, you might want to make an appointment with a psychiatrist. They're the ones that can prescribe medication. So even if you only need medication for a short period of time, this is who you're going to want to see. So regardless of whether you're able to take time off between your jobs, a trauma-informed therapist is going to be really, really helpful for you to help you to separate out what happened in your last job and what is going to happen or what is happening in your new job. In particular, they can help you to identify certain triggers that may throw you back into survival mode when it's unnecessary. And so certain triggers like a manager yelling at you, that understandably warrants a negative response. That's objectively not okay. But like I mentioned earlier, a benign request from somebody could trigger something in you that reminds you from your last job, and it really shouldn't warrant the similarly negative response from you. And a good therapist can help you to develop strategies for dealing with these triggers differently going forward. Next, assuming that you have moved into a psychologically safe, or at least safer, work environment, a really great thing to do is to talk with your new boss. Now, the purpose of these conversations that you're going to have with your boss are to, not explicitly, but to implicitly alert them to what your triggers are by telling them how you work best in the absence of those triggers. Okay, so don't mistake this with you going and talking shit about your last boss, being like, oh, my last boss would do this and it totally triggered me into that, so let's not do that. That's not how this is gonna go. Here's what I want you to say instead. Most managers are receptive to statements that start with, I've learned that I work my best when, and then you'll fill in the blank. Or another good one is, I know that I'm able to learn best when, because we know the learning brain is very different from survival brain. So let's say your last boss would give you assignments with vague or incomplete instructions. You could say, I've found that I do my best work when I get instructions for my projects in written form and an opportunity to ask whoever's giving me the assignment some follow-up questions just to make sure that I'm crystal clear on what's expected of me. Now, let's say your last boss would give you passive-aggressive feedback via email, and so now you import negative intent on any kind of written feedback. So you can say, I've learned that I learn better and am able to implement feedback best when I get that feedback in person rather than in email. So when you're opening a dialogue like this, early on in your new working relationship with your boss, you're laying a foundation of trust and an environment of psychological safety. They're really going to appreciate you having the self-awareness of knowing how you work best and cluing them into that. That's setting everyone up for success. And it's able to help you from inferring negative intent on your new colleagues and bosses when it's just not the case. So if you're not sure whether or not you're in a toxic workplace, or you do think you're in a toxic workplace and you want to know how to deal with getting out of that burnout, I've got a free guide for you, Break Free from Lawyer Burnout. It's in a link in the description below. In the guide, you will learn how your workplace is the source of your burnout, how to recognize the symptoms, and what to do when you are in burnout and you want to leave it behind. And be sure to like this video so that you can come back to it when you're ready to leave your toxic job, and you will have all these tips right here waiting for you.